Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another Genshin Impact lore reading session. I am in a place we haven't been to in a while, and I dubbed this place my Genshin Impact Lore Awakening. We are back in good old Byakuya Koku, aka Enkanomia, the region that changed Genshin Impact forever, with the Sovereigns and the Heavenly Principles, and Enjo, my beloved, the Dainichi Mikoshi, the crazy lore of the past that predates Celestia. And we are here because it is appropriate. We are going to be reading the new 5.5 artifact sets. At the time of recording right now, Hoyoverse has already started posting like a lot on the Moon Web event regarding the 11 factions that we're going to be getting introduced to or more involved with Nod-Krai's release, and the Lightkeepers are associated with this artifact set. I actually wrote down a little bit of notes here, so just reading off of this. For what we know, or for what I know, one of the artifact sets is called the Lightkeepers Pledge. The Lightkeepers are an ancient organization that has long defended Nod-Krai's freedom and peace against the ceaseless incursions and wild hunt attacks launched by the Abyss, now severely weakened from battles past. In the face of new threats, none can say for sure if the new generation of Ratniki will remain able to carry out their mission. I also looked it up. Ratniki means warrior in Russian, if I'm not mistaken. So these guys are essentially the Giga Chads of Nod-Krai, the Abyss Watchers of Genshin Impact for any Dark Souls fans out there. These guys are literally fighting and defending with light and driving back the darkness of the Abyss. And that's why I decided to come to Enkanomia, because the Dainichi Mikoshi does the exact same thing. Its function is the exact same. You use the light to drive away the darkness of the Bathismal Vishaps. I also, if you guys didn't notice, I actually equipped my Lumenstone Adjuvant because it also reminds me of the light of the Lumenstone driving away the dark mud of the chasm. So that's why I literally have it equipped, even though I can't use it. I did it for aesthetics. It reminds me of Urabashi as well. Shout out to the 2.5 Enkanomia event, the Three Realms Gateway offering. We did get an official statue of Urabashi, or the Vassal. This is kind of giving Lightkeepers energy, and that's why I decided to start in Evernight. For those of you in chat who are curious, you can only see that lantern in Evernight. I wanted to just showcase that for people who might not know or who have forgotten. It's been a really long time since we've been in Enkanomia, and I tweeted out, I was like, Urabashi was the original Lightkeeper, I swear to God. Not making a statement, but more so like, oh my God, this has to be connected somehow. And we got like an official, like, we got this statue as like a statue during the 2.5 Enka event. It was a limited thing, but there's a big version of it here that you can come to. You can see it in its full glory right there. You can take pictures of it and whatnot. And I just couldn't help but think of the Lightkeepers, because the illustration of the Lightkeepers has those three figures who are all holding lanterns the same way that that figure is. So I don't know if that's Urabashi or if that's one of his disciples or whatever the case might be. So we are going to be reading all 5 artifact sets. Nod-Krai is the next region that Hoyo is teasing. At the time of recording right now, they're going to have something planned for the web event update on the 30th, which is tomorrow. So I wanted to read all of the lore before that point, because I don't know what they're going to reveal or what they're going to share or talk about. I don't know if they're going to give characters or whatever the case might be. Right here, actually. Right directly underneath the light of the world. Now I'm a Lightkeeper, gamers. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here. Thank you so much to the mods and the people in the server for giving me the reading order. So I am going to be reading these in a specific order as well. I got my pen and notebook too. I'm pretty sure I'm going to learn a thing or two about all this stuff. All right, so we have Lightkeeper's Pledge, a metal flower that was worn by the Ratniki. It symbolizes the oath of eternal vigilance taken by its original owner. In those days, the land was leveled by the northern hunting winds, cutting down the unruly frontier folk at the behest of the despotic knyazes, high nobles, kings, princes, and high lords. Okay, at the behest of despotic kings, in a bid to seize power left over by the heavenly moons. Holy shit. Okay, I guess that makes sense. A mad monk who spoke in strange tongues presented a treacherous plot to the Tsar of all Fae. So the Tsar would be like the leader of all Fae, I'm assuming is what it mentions, unless this is the Archon they're talking about. Every Archon has like a connection to that region's like deity, right? Zhongli is an Adepti, Venti is a wind spirit. I guess Ei and Makoto aren't yokai, but like Nahida the mother of the Aranara. Focalor was an Oceanid. So I'm wondering if the Tsaritsa is also like a snow fae. In a bid to seize power left behind by the heavenly moons, a mad monk who spoke in strange tongues presented a treacherous plot to the Tsar of all fae. Thus were the moon children hidden in their mountain forests scattered, sisters driven by fate down diverging paths. In the end, even that pretentious lunatic could not break free of the celestial shell and was consumed by the bedeviled sky at the edge of delusion. What the heck? So someone tried to break from the firmament? The celestial shell sounds like the firmament. They sound like a mad scholar almost, or like someone that like lost their mind through like forbidden knowledge or something. And it mentions here the moon children. I'm assuming those are the frost moon scions, right? But all this took place before the paradise had even come into being. For at that time, it was no more than a daydream, a fantasy shared by two children beneath the moon's glow. It was not until many years later, when one of them was executed as a notorious bandit, infamous throughout the nation, that the other finally realized the true meaning of those words that had been left behind as if by accident. Oh, a notorious bandit, infamous. Oh, I wonder if that was Reed Miller, right? The leader of the treasure hoarders. He's an infamous bandit, known throughout all nations because those fucking treasure hoarders are everywhere. Wow, big treasure hoarder lore. Holy shit, potentially, I'm assuming. So Reed Miller is the leader of the treasure hoarders. He's no longer in the picture, obviously. But yeah, his organizations still thrive. And there's another person who was left behind, and I guess he kind of revealed something to them regarding all of that. What followed, we all know. When the long night fell, the royal court of the north could no longer mind the remote borderland beyond the snowy plains. And so the horde of pitch black beasts tore across the barren land, destroying all traces of past civilization. Okay. They were encroached upon by the abyss when the long night fell. So this was probably their cataclysm. This sounds like this is the Snezhnaya cataclysm, maybe. Or maybe even before that, like even before the cataclysm, potentially. It was not until borrowing power from the priestess of the moon children, the original torchbearer raised that first beam of light, and in the name of the moon, banished the darkness of those lightless ruins, burying it deep down alongside the nightmare-torn souls. Wow. So it's the moonlight. So this light from the torchbearers seems to be moonlight that is used to burn away the abyss. Interesting. And the torchbearers, I'm sorry, I keep saying torchbearers, I apologize. The Torchforgers seem to be bearers of moonlight. Yo, the moon haunts you. Moon Knight would be proud, gamers. Holy moly. When all was over, the survivors raised a lighthouse atop the mountains, gazing far out towards the new ruler of Snezhnaya. To preserve his dear friend's pure childlike dream. Oh, wow. To preserve his dear friend's pure childlike dream, the Torchforger did not shy away from defending it before the Tsaritsa's court. And though he received the royal edict he sought, he also took it upon himself an oath of vigilance and sacrifice, and thus began the history of the paradise known as Nod-Krai. Wow. So this is the origin story of Nod-Krai, how it came up into power by these two individuals. I guess this person, the original Torchforger, and Reed Miller. So we're gonna learn about the original Torchforger for sure. And he borrowed power from the priestess of the moon children. So I'm assuming that priestess probably still exists now if she's like a long-living fae, like a snow fae creature. This is kind of giving Renova energy a little bit, right? Xbalanque borrowing power from the Shade of Death, the Torchforger borrowing power from the moon children, and he became the first Lightkeeper, it seems like. That's really cool. Crazy too to think about. Yeah, people in chat are saying it too, like, I wonder if the Torchforger is the 10th Fatui Harbinger, but they're off doing their own thing because Nod-Krai has their own autonomy. That would be kind of crazy if there is the 10th Harbinger there, and he's a Lightkeeper maybe. That'd be sick. Next up, Nightingale's tail feather. A hat ornament intricately crafted from the feathers of a nightingale. They say that its form was once conceived by the original... Okay, so this is the Torchforger set. Legend told of a nightingale carrying an ember in its beak that flew only on moonless nights. A speck of fire that would streak across the firmament like a shooting star, a light in dark times. Upon the ancient ruins of a castle, a vestige of an age of pioneers, stood the high tower of the Lightkeepers, a standing guard through the long night. Centuries had passed. Okay, so this is hundreds of years. Centuries had passed since their ancestors had stood before the Tsaritsa. So centuries, that sounds like it could have been 500 years ago. That first artifact piece we read might have been during or around the time of the Cataclysm. Centuries had passed since their ancestors had stood before the Tsaritsa, swearing an oath of eternal fidelity. Sounds like the Tsaritsa is at least 500 years old as well. And the people living in Paradise, or Nod-Krai, believed that so long as their lighthouse stayed lit, they could live in freedom. So, chat, Simulanka is the gift that keeps on giving, and I will say that to the end of my days. The lighthouse in Simulanka was tilted and toppled over, which I think is foreshadowing that the Lightkeepers are cooked. Because they say here, so long as the lighthouse stays lit, we can continue to live forever in freedom. S. Noir was also a Lightkeeper. When we first got introduced to him, he literally says, hey, I'm the Lightkeeper of this place. The tower is toppled down, and the light of the lighthouse went on to be the moon, symbolizing that the moon powers of the moon children is the same moonlight that helps the Lightkeepers. It was so peak, bro. Simulanka was so goated. I think this time around, their numbers are dwindling. The lighthouse is going to fall. The abyss is going to encroach, and the traveler is going to probably have to save them somehow. And the people living in Nod-Krai believed that so long as their lighthouse stayed lit, it could live in they could live in freedom, neither fearing the chaos wrought by the pitch black beasts, nor needing to seek refuge in the lands to the north, Snezhnaya. Then, one night, a chilling sound carried over the horizon's edge. What? The leader of the wild hunt was a boy. Wait, we actually, are we gonna see the leader of the wild hunt? What? The leader of the wild hunt was abroad. Galloping? Bro, I think the wild hunt are just like a bunch of like Dark Reaver, like freaking horsemen. That is sick. So he's on a horse. The leader of the wild hunt was abroad, galloping across the night sky. As ever, the night watchers laid down their great animal skin cloaks. Yet that day, the sun rose not. Okay, he either is a horse or the leader is riding on an abyssal horse. I'm thinking he's riding on the horse. He's not actually the horse. But that's still badass. That's cool as fuck. So the leader of the wild hunt is probably going to be equivalent to Gosoithoth. I kind of consider Gosoithoth to be like one of the generals of the abyss. The volcano, right? The Sacred Mountain World Quest implied that the abyss have a leader. And so if the abyss have a leader, these guys are under that leader. Gosoithoth, this galloping leader of the wild hunt, is probably another like quote unquote like lieutenant of the abyss if I had to give them a title. That's so freaking crazy. I did not know they'd be in the picture. As the rallying horn echoed through the hills, warriors formed ranks at the high tower's foot, awaiting that momentous command to march south in fulfillment of their ancient vow. Yo, it's time for war, boys. We gotta defend the ground. Yet in the great mead hall, the current Starshina. Someone in chat said that's the elders or the elite. Okay, an elder. Okay, let me just write that down. Elder. Yet in the great mead hall, the current Starshina sat in silence, for already a mighty host bright as midsummer's day had reached the city gates to the north. Warriors of the Pale Star. That Pale Star Edict? Hold on. Warriors of the Fatui, why did you choose this moment to knock at Pyramida's gate? So I think Pyramida is like their fortress or like their stronghold. Let me write that down. Even you have no right to invoke the sacred powers bestowed upon us by Her Majesty the Tsaritsa. Though they claim to be reinforcements, these uninvited guests had ulterior motives. As the Starshina knew full well, oh dear, But to yield at this juncture would spell the end of the autonomy they had upheld for centuries past. So you're telling me in the middle of fighting the Abyss, the Fatui were like, hey, we're kind of here for our own reasons, but, you know, can you help us out? They were like, hey, you want to share some of that moonlight power with us? We're trying to figure out some powers of our own. I think that's what it was. They probably wanted to know like the secrets of the lighthouse or something. Something to that effect, it has to be. And now they're back. Hundreds of years later, they're back in Nod-Krai to do it again. From beneath the lead officer's mask came a voice, low and cold, and in its wake, a mocking laugh from parts unknown. This is where the dark calamity began. Remember, Snezhnaya cannot bear the weight of your defeat. Warriors of the Nightingale, fight with all your might, yet should none of you return, we will take care of the aftermath. I don't know if this is Dottore speaking or if it's Piero, but they said he has a mask and both of them wear masks. So technically Piero has half a mask, Dottore has a full mask, so it could be Dottore, but that doesn't sound, or Capitan. I mean, they all kind of have masks at the end of the day, so I don't know who it could be, but my first thought was Piero, but now that, you know, we know about Nod-Krai now, it could be Dottore also. Interesting. So we have some Fatui in here and some Lightkeeper talk. Okay, next up is the Goblet. A horn unwinded, a horn that was once used to summon those who had sworn oaths. It has long since lost its purpose. When the horns proclaimed the northern realm's might, thunderous footsteps shook the earth. Like iron rails stretched across the frozen tundra, sending pale flames shooting across the land. A contingent sworn to Her Majesty the Tsaritsa, whose loyalty lay with no single harbinger, vowed to forge a pure new world beneath the white glimmering stars. I love this line too, because a lot of people are under the assumption that like, oh, what are the Fatui doing? Like, what is Capitano doing? He's not doing what the Tsaritsa said. Like, he's off doing his own thing for Natlan, and so he failed his mission. But at the end of the day, what did Dainsleif say in that trailer? He said, she is a god with no love left for her people, nor do they have any for her. I feel like the Tsaritsa is like, as long as my plans are enacted, you can do whatever the fuck you want. You want to go save Natlan? Go do it, as long as some type of progress is made. And at the end of the day, progress wasn't made on the Gnosis, progress was made on the moon fragments. Dottore made a come up because of Capitano. You want to go and become a god, Scaramouche? Do it, as long as I get the Gnosis. Dottore, you want to do your research? You get all the stuff you want. You brought me 2 Gnoses. You know what I mean? So like, the Tsaritsa is just as selfish in what she wants as the like, they're just kind of choosing to work together for their common goals, but none of them are like buddy or family or anything like that, you know? I love that. Like, she also has her own agenda. I wonder what her motivations are for wanting to create a new world. I've theorized this for a while. I think it's love. I think love is strong enough to make anyone want to change how things are, especially if someone was taken from you. And so I've always thought that there was some type of like love dynamic, because we haven't really gotten that from any other archons. We've had family, we've had sisters, we've had, you know, master and apprentice, we've had familial bonds, but nothing that's like, nothing to that degree. So I think that would be a very interesting dynamic for the Tsaritsa, especially since she's the current Archon. I wonder what her relationship is with the previous one. I originally thought that Bronya was the current Tsaritsa and then Zila was the previous Cryo Archon, but apparently Belyazar is a male title, is a title for like a male ruler. So I don't think that holds weight, but I still think it could be like a love dynamic. One thing that I do want to mention, so the previous artifact set, right? So this feather artifact set here, the last line mentions warriors of the Nightingale, fight with all your might, yet should none of you return, then we will take care of the aftermath. I wonder if this implies that like these warriors did all die and then Dottore moved in and that's basically his research facility that's in Nod-Krai right now. So he basically like, you guys are under new management now after the aftermath of that previous fight. And Dottore's hundreds of years old, so even if this took place hundreds of years ago, it would still track for Dottore if this is like his base of operations. So that's also very interesting, because it kind of makes sense why someone who's a harbinger who follows the Tsaritsa in Snezhnaya has a base of operations in an autonomous nation that doesn't need outside help. You know what I mean? Like Dottore it kind of seems like Dottore kind of moved in when the opportunity was right, and now he's in a nation that's hailed failed with the moonlight, and he's one step closer to harnessing that moonlight. I don't know if they're gonna create their own moon with like that Death Star illustration that they showcased to us a few days ago, but clearly he's after whatever moon presence or whatever moon powers are with the Lightkeepers. So I think that that's pretty evident. All right, let us continue. Even those dwelling in the borderlands, autonomy being bestowed upon them, remained children of the motherland. For in her boundless love, the Tsaritsa abandoned none who chose to follow. Dainsleif said the same thing too. He says, she is a god with no love left for her people, nor do they have any left for her. He says something along the lines of, her followers only hope to be on her side on the day of her rebellion, or something like that. So like, they basically just don't want to be on the wrong side of history. If this world is going to be usurped and a new world is going to be enacted, they just want to make sure they're part of that new world. So they'll play ball. They'll do what the Tsaritsa says if it means that they can survive. Since his earliest years, the warrant officer who led this border squad had held his convictions firm until he hovered before the very gates of hell and glimpsed those souls unloved by any. What the hell? Bro's in the underworld? He's in hell? What the heck? That sounds crazy. The request to strike had yet to be sanctioned, but he had already made up his mind. We journeyed this far to save innocence, beset by merciless calamity. How could we stand by as those pitch black beasts devoured the land, snatching away the lives of mothers and their children? If this is what those in power call an order, then to hell with it. So it sounds like they were trying to save people that were affected by the calamity. I don't know if that's just in general. I'm also wondering if Hyperborea, is it Hyperborea? Yeah, I'm wondering if Hyperborea is going to be like a place that we get to go in Snezhnaya in the future, kind of like how we got to go to Remoria and how we're eventually going to go to Conria and all of these like root cycle civilizations of the past. We didn't get to go to Notlantia, obviously, but like I feel like Notlantia is kind of like set in the age of the dragons in the past, and we got to experience that through Natlan and through like the Men of Lythen book, so I think that'd be interesting. Thus was the foul miasma swept away by the northern winds, just as the first light of dawn pierced the coal-black clouds, its glow once more cast down upon the cerulean earth below. The war had ended, yet to the high power, no triumphant hero returned, only a criminal and the children he had risked all to save. Though the plan had strayed slightly from its course, the renegade doctor paid it no heed, for the goal had been achieved. Desertion, treason against the Tsaritsa, grave crimes indeed, yet absolved by a newly sworn oath. Upon a staircase built of bones, the warriors took up their watch, there to stand until the abyssal tides dried up. Dottore just let it slide because they got what they wanted. So the warrant officer was like, I need to do something about this. Breaks the chain of command. I guess strikes before getting the official order. A bunch of people die. They get in trouble for treason and deserting the Tsaritsa's plans. And it says here, though the plan had strayed slightly from its course, the renegade doctor, Dottore, didn't mind because he got what he wanted. So this guy got in trouble. Dottore's like, good job, buddy. And the rest is history. So the Fatui wanted the Lightkeepers to die, but the warrant officer didn't want them to die, so he tried to protect them, and then he got in trouble. Holy moly, this shit's going hard. So all of this just to get rid of the Lightkeepers? But like, why would you want to get rid of the Lightkeepers when they're trying to protect the Abyss? Like, they're trying to protect everyone from the Abyss. Like, it's just weird, because it seems like the Tsaritsa and the Fatui, are they doing all of this just to get control of their lighthouse in their moonlight? I feel like that's gonna be that's going to do you more harm than good, because then you would expect them to have to know how to do the Lightkeeper's job just as well as them. Otherwise, you take over the Abyss are going to have one less thing to worry about if that light source, if anything happens to the lighthouse, you know what I mean? I feel like this is probably Dottore's plan, right? Like, if the Lightkeepers already have this, like, this ancient power that predates the Seven, and they're using this moonlight to defeat the Abyss, Dottore's looking at that like, oh, that's interesting. You know, it's like, oh, if we take out the Lightkeepers, then I can move in on this place and I can make that a part of my research. So let's try to like take them out of the picture. And then this guy, this warrant officer realizes, oh man, this is the power. This is who's in control of Snezhnaya. I'm not gonna let that happen. And then the warrant officer gets in trouble. The Lightkeepers get swept. And then Dotori moves in and he's like, I got a new power source. I got everything I wanted. And the Tsaritsa lets it happen because it's all for the cause. And now look at that. Now the Fatui are responsible for saving people in Nod-Krai because they have control now. That's pretty crazy. When like in reality, like everything was fine until they showed up. They just wanted this power, because that's the thing. I don't think the Lightkeepers are, I'm pretty sure the Lightkeepers swore an oath to protect people, but also probably to safeguard this power from anyone. And obviously they're not going to give up the power, so the Fatui are going to take it by force. I know they didn't outright kill the Lightkeepers, but by not helping them and letting them fend for themselves, you're basically signing their death warrant, because you know if they're not going to outlast the Abyss, you just need to wait, and then you just swoop in and get the alley-oop. This is a really great read. Yeah, I guess Dotori did take care of that aftermath. All right, next up we have the Sands. Undying One's Mourning Bell. A bronze bell that was carried by a warrior who walked through the dark abyss. Excuse me? Its peal could be heard in pitch black night. That sounds like a sinner. The air was thick with the scent of blood, as if signaling the return of the great war by which the earth had been scorched. With a great mournful wail, the army of spirits flew across the pitch blackness of the night sky. According to the folk tales spread through the countryside, they were said to be a demonic host from another world, seeking a harvest of souls. Oh my god. Others believed it to be the lingering phantoms of that ancient nightmare. Oh, okay, I see. This was the calamity that the people of the Borderlands referred to as Wild Hunt. Wasn't Nod-Krai described as being at the edge of the world or something like that? Yeah, in the web event. Yeah, that's crazy too, because I'm a Simulanka glazer at this point. In Simulanka, Act 3 was called Until the End of the World, and it took place in the Broken Sea at the end of the world. If it had been no more than a summer storm raving the skies with thunder and lightning, it might have seemed a small mishap for those accustomed to a life of adventure. But when that tempest, the likes of which had never been seen for a century, poured down upon the earth like black blood rain, what the fuck? Only then did the people realize that these terrifying legends, which had been passed down by their ancestors, were not mere stories meant to frighten children, but born instead of a terror that coursed through their very veins. Bro, the Wild Hunt sounds crazy. The illustrations for them that they showed on Twitter was so sick. They look like the Abyss is on like fire or something. It looks so freaking cool. It's crazy because the Wild Hunt are mobilizing, and the Abyss seems to usually be like this natural, it's almost like a natural force. It's like a force of nature almost. The closest thing that we've ever gotten to the Abyss in an organized sense is the Abyss Order, which is essentially a bunch of Conrians that got turned into monsters because of the Abyss. So they're deciding to use that power to their advantage. But the Abyss are looking for something in Nod-Krai. It's such a different approach, and it's really, really cool. But in the end, it was a terror that someone had to face, lighting the way for the souls wandering through the boundless dark. A black feathered flock of crows. Yo! We call that a murder of birds, a murder of crows, gamers. A black feathered flock of crows moved between the realm. Wait, what? Wait, hold on, wait, what? A black feathered flock of crows. That's literally a murder of birds. A black feathered flock of crows moved between the realms of light and shadow, led by one who stood against the light. What? Chat, that's me. I'm in Genshin. That's crazy. His sword he silently raised, the face reflected in its sheen as sharp and unyielding as the blade itself. Who the hell is this? Are we gonna get a sinner in this lore? Because this sounds like it might be Rashir of Solnari Rerir, right? Doesn't that mean like Moon Avenger? So like if this is anyone, it has to be Rerir. Onward pressed the oath-bound legion, though they knew they were as moth to the flame, marching onto the battlefield for whom none would return. At the end of the path, only the one who held the dark blade still stood. He knew that deep within the forest lurked a foul force, that which the Wild Hunt had been summoned forth. Okay, This is the second time they said the word foul, and I'm thinking foul legacy now that we're talking about the abyss. So now I'm thinking of its certology. Just a little more, a little further, and he would have saved the land he had sworn to protect. Lost in his thoughts, he failed to notice that his... Oh, sevens, I'm so sorry. Lost in his thoughts, he failed to notice that his body had already been torn asunder, and that the warning bell he carried rang out hissing amidst the tearing of blood and black muck. Perhaps frightened by its unsettling chime, the carrion feeders around him faltered, frozen in their tracks. Thus was he left to walk alone in the abyss, to fulfill an as yet unfulfilled oath. As many years went by, a new addition was woven into the folklore of the land, that whenever mournful bells toll, it was a sign that the one who swore to hunt down the wild hunt is approaching. Dude, this is sick as fuck. This is literally an Abyss Watcher. I fight the darkness from within the darkness. Oh my god, that is so fucking cool. This low-key kind of reminds me of the Bloodstained Knight a little bit. All right, and the last one we have is the Circlet. Dying Tassel, an ancient heavy helmet. It is an heirloom that bears the mark of a venerable lineage of northern warriors. Okay, nice. We got more of this. It is said that the first Torchforger hailed from a wintry city of the furthest north, the Nightingale's emblem a mark of his illustrious heritage. Originally engaged as a spy, the family was elevated to the gentry by the White Tsar. Okay, so that's the Belyazar, right? The first Cryo Archon. And thus did this man of humble origin step into the royal palace, now mingling amongst the Fey dignitaries of the court. Oh, wow. Okay. Are they all Fey? Even the Tsaritsa? That'd be interesting. Oh my god, chat. We are freaking goated. I remember when I started Natlan, I was like, is the Tsaritsa just a snowman? Because all of the Archons are all like the governing creatures of their nation. And I was like, oh, I wonder if she's a snowman. And it's like, yeah, kinda. She might be a snowland fae at this point. That's cool. When the nation found themselves swept up by the calamity, the frontier region, once a locus of high hopes during the pioneering age, found themselves bereft of the gods' protection. In Nod-Krai's darkest hour, from the north came only a single rider, clad in dark silver armor. Damn, they were like, bro, in our time of need, we don't have a god to look for. We don't have any help. But here comes the Dark Knight. I don't even know what to call them. The Dark Lightkeeper. As if knowing why he had come, the Maiden of the New Moon lit a beacon to dispel the darkness. The Maiden of the New Moon, chat. There's a new moon sister in town. Interesting. I wonder, I'm assuming we're gonna learn about them. So I wonder if there was like a passing of the torch. So I'm wondering what that's all about. Like there's some like lunar reconstruction going on here. On the eve of their departure for the Limpo Isles. Oh, that's new. Let me write that down. That's another thing too. There's a lot of islands in Nod-Krai. I'm wondering if it's gonna be kind of like Inazuma. On the eve of their departure for the Limpo Isles to the south, a grand banquet was held for the warriors in the Grand Mead Hall. Of those present, the most striking was undoubtedly a certain young warrior clad in a dark tasseled helmet, pole arm clutched in hand. Among the Ratniki of the time, few of those still wore such archaic, cumbersome armor, for it symbolized their bloodline as descendants of those warriors who first fought alongside the Torchforgers to repel the Dark Tide. Despite having neither fief nor noble title, they continue to uphold the oath of their ancestors, for they believed that somewhere out there, the Lord of all Fae and erstwhile protector of all Snezhnaya watched over them still. God, that is so based. Amidst the sludge-sullied tundra, now soaked too in the blood of heroes, the young warrior knelt among the bodies of his fallen comrades. Sacrifice had always been the Ratniki's fate and honor, but if he could save one more soul, rescue just one another, then all the better. And so, like his ancestors before him, he prayed to an old god that no one now called upon, as well as to the Kanyazas he had once held dominion over. Perhaps awakened by the sound of the horn or drawn by the long-forgotten scent of bloodshed, or maybe just out of boredom, somewhere out there, as if in answer to his plea, A long dormant phantom stirred from slumber. That ghostly blue wildfire of which ancient legends spoke would burn brightly anew on fresh fields of battle. So this guy just awoken like some ancient power or some ancient presence to fight the abyss because no one else will. Also, they said blue fire? Interesting. I think the Lightkeepers was my favorite faction when we first got all of them. Like, I'm the most excited for the Lightkeepers now when we go to Nod-Krai after reading this. There's an individual right now in Nod-Krai who's kind of like an abyss watcher. It's like this phantom warrior of the past that fights and defends Nod-Krai because of an oath. This is definitely going to be world quest related. That'd be sick if this phantom is our companion, like the first Giga Chad companion on our journey. That'd be sick. Yeah, I don't know what this blue fire is, this blue wildfire. I don't know if that's the abyssal power that they have control over. So they basically became one with the abyss after they died, and so now they're just like this abyssal apparition. It would be cool if it's them, and then at the end of their quest line, at the end of the quest chain, like every other one, they'll finally be able to rest once the abyss is dealt with. So I'm actually going to say that this ghostly blue wildfire abyssal spirit is going to be our companion, which would be really, really cool. This was a fantastic read. I am so locked in to the Lightkeepers. I cannot wait to learn more about them. I'm probably, fingers crossed, I prayed for a playable Lightkeeper character. This is without a doubt my favorite new faction, for sure, without a doubt. Even if there is no direct connection, I will always associate the Dainichi Mikoshi as being like, this was basically the Lightkeepers before the Lightkeepers. Like, because Byakuya Koku existed long before anything on Teyvat. The Lightkeepers are just following in Abaraku's footsteps, right? They're just following in Enkanomiya's footsteps. Dotore's still an evil son of a bitch doing his own stuff. I'm sure we're gonna learn a lot more about the Lightkeepers after we get introduced to whatever he's scheming about. But I think he's going to Nod-Krai for control over the light power or the moonlight for whatever his endgame plan is with his research and Project Stuja and all this other stuff. Like, they're just grabbing anything and everything they can get their hands on. Phlogiston, moon fragments, moonlight, abyssal energy, elemental energy, like Kavarina energy, like everything. They will spare no expense to create a new world. I'm excited to learn more about all of these factions that we're going to get to in Nod-Krai. Obviously, the Lightkeepers are my most anticipated, most excited. They sound badass as hell. I love any organization that directly fights the Abyss. Like Khaenri'ah, for example. That's why I love Khaenri'ah, right? Just like fucking warriors of light fighting off against the vicious creatures of darkness. It's just such a cool, like, high fantasy tale. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. We're going to take a short little intermission, and then we're actually going to be reading the finale Deep of the Galleries or something. Basically, the Cryo set. We're going to be reading that one next, and Lord knows what that one's going to give me. If this one gave me all this information about, like, this faction and the Abyss and everything else in between, very excited. So I'll see you guys all in the next one.